always at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. It is time to talk about some of the news that has been coming out, including a signing of a big wide receiver, Alex.
A new wide receiver has entered the building in San Francisco and Santa Clara with this team for the 49ers. And we're here to talk about it. Plus all the other stuff that got discussed and brought up this wonderful, well, it was on Tuesday, but now we're on a wonderful Wednesday. So make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and that notification bell. That way you're notified for all of the content coming out on the channel, which is plenty. You got Thanksgiving tomorrow. It's a time to be thankful. It's a time to be, I guess, faithful, Ant, and grateful for the faithfulness and for the faithful.
And happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and enjoy your holiday. Absolutely.
We won't have any videos that come out tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a nice off day. All of you can enjoy your holiday. We can enjoy our holiday. Nothing crazy to do. And that means that the game preview show that normally comes out on Thursdays will get pushed to Friday. That will actually be your daily video that comes out on Friday at 11 a.m. But you're still going to have Quest for the West tonight, which is a lot of fun with Sam from the not the He's on Fire podcast. That would be Evan from the He's on Fire podcast, but Sam from the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. Get an idea of what's going on there with the Seahawks. But before we get too far into anything else, and let's talk about the newest wide receiver in San Francisco, Devin Funchess, a guy who spent a good chunk of time in Carolina with the Cam Newtons of the world and the Kelvin Benjamins of the world when they had that pairing going on there, as well as some time in Indianapolis with the Colts in 2019 where he broke his collarbone. That was the end of his tenure there. He broke it in week 1, I think like the 4th or 5th play of the game. So absolutely.
Yeah, he had like 32 yards receiving in that game too. He wasn't doing bad.
No, he was having a good start and then an awful start and then terrible things. And then he ended up in, I think it was Green Bay last year.
And 2020 Green Bay.
Opted out due to COVID. Yeah. And so he hasn't really been doing much of anything. He was in Green Bay early in the season, dealt with a hamstring injury, got released there, and now he's on the 49ers practice squad. People yesterday in the Daily were like, oh, Funchess. Is this a guy who can take the top off the defense? You and I kind of have an idea of what Devin Funchess adds to this wide receiver room. Is it that?
No, he's not going to take the top off the defense. But what he is going to be able to do is, convert, big catches, and he can make plays. He's got pretty good hands. He's not crazy, but he's got good hands. And what he did in Carolina, I think, is something the 49ers would like to add to this roster. And as a practice squad guy, it's a cheap option. But you are missing that third receiver with Mohamed Sanu, because as much as I like Jawan Jennings, he's just not a threat in the pass game. And Funchess gives you a little bit of a different element because of his 6'4", 230-pound frame, where you can throw the ball up and this guy can go get it. He's a jump ball guy, another guy that can be very successful in the red zone. So is he going to take the top off the defense? No. We have two guys that can take the top off the defense, pretty much anytime they want. And that's Brandon Aiyuk and Kelvin Benjamin. I'm sorry. Travis Benjamin. Sorry, you said Kelvin earlier.
I did.
I went full Florida
State was on the brain. It's all good.
But no, those are the two guys that can do it, continuously. Deebo Samuel can also do it on occasion. But that's not what Funchess would be asked to do. But Funchess, I think, will be asked to fill that role that Mohamed Sanu has left behind, because they do see that there's a big weakness there. So when will Funchess add to this team? Will he ever add to this team? It's a good question. But I do like that they're continuing to try to build this wide receiver room, because they've lost pieces. They've lost guys that have similar skill sets to him, and now they can bring him in and use him. But he's had big seasons in the past, including 2017, right over 800 yards receiving, and 2018, right over 500 yards receiving. He's a very formidable person to add to this roster.
And he's not an old man. I mean, he's only
27.
He's 27 years old. This would be his 7th year in the league. I mean, this is a guy who's he's been through some different teams and some different situations, but this is not a guy who's completely fallen off. He's just recently fallen on some difficult stuff. Some injuries the last couple of years have kind of kept him out, and it's not big injuries, not significant. The collarbone is the only one that's really a big significant injury. The hamstring strain that he had, it just kept him out of training camp, and he wasn't able to compete with the young guys and develop the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. And if you're not going to be able to do those things, not going to go well for you. So Devin Funchess really just needs to focus in and dial in here on, getting in here, learning the system, and showing what he can contribute. But this is definitely a guy who can fill that Mohamed Sanu-esque role.
Speaking of system, since he was with Green Bay, shouldn't this be an easy transition for him?
Easier. Definitely should be easier. And here's the thing, right? He went in to Green Bay, signed with Green Bay, got his playbook, started going through stuff. Then the COVID stuff happens. He opts out. He still has his playbook, though. He still has all the things he needs. He was still studying and learning that system. So I imagine terminology-wise, could be a lot of things that are the same that he understands. Scheme-wise, a lot of things are the same he's going to understand. So I don't think it's going to take him very long, and it wouldn't shock me, Ant, if the Niners think they have 2 open roster spots right now.
Yeah, they
coming
do.
into this game. So it wouldn't shock me if we get later into this week if Devin Funchess is not that other guy that's basically put in, called up from the practice squad and activated onto the roster for the 49ers.
Really, you think he could play this week?
Maybe. Listen, it all comes down to what he knows, right? How much he knows and how much he can fully grasp of the system. The Niners are looking for wide receiver 3. They are looking for that guy who's going to fill that third role and fill that mold. Juwan Jennings is doing a lot of great stuff in the blocking game. And that's about the extent of it. We saw him against the Rams not be able to create separation. We've seen him consistently not be able to create separation. We're also seeing teams who are completely willing to let Juwan Jennings run down the field, down the seam, and stick one-on-one coverage, and that's about it.
Yeah, and the interesting part, right, is that Funchess and Juwan Jennings, as far as speed, are similar.
Yes.
They're both 4'7" guys. The difference is where Juwan Jennings is like 6'2", Funchess is 6'4", where Juwan Jennings is 215, Funchess is 230. There's a little bit of a size difference there, and maybe that's enough. But Funchess has already proven what he can do in this league. He's proven that he can make these plays.
Correct.
I mean, some of that was, Cam would throw it up to him and he would go make a great play. But it's an interesting thing. I'm curious how he fits in this system. I didn't see the signing coming, but ultimately I really do like it. I think there's no risk here. He's a practice squad guy that you could elevate. I think it's interesting that you think that he could play this week. I mean, with him knowing the system, being in Green Bay for basically 2 years between the opt-out and then, starting out early this year in training camp, he should have an understanding of the base knowledge of it, and then they'll have to just kind of help him along the way, because I know Kyle Shanahan's even more intricate than what LaFleur is. But that is an interesting prospect that he could actually be on the roster. And maybe that is part of it. The matchup with the Vikings is something that they're looking for.
Big body, right?
Yeah.
It can operate that third down role, that Mohamed Sanu role, getting him in space, catching short intermediate stuff. And like you talked about, the red zone, all that stuff makes sense. All of it adds up. It really just comes down to, does Kyle Shanahan feel he can put him out there in situations where he needs to block and that he can block successfully in the seam? Is he a physical guy?
He is.
I've never seen him not be physical. And you got to remember those Carolina teams were predicated on them being able to run the football and doing a lot of different things, whether that was read option, whether it was interior, exterior. Running the football was extremely important in Carolina during those times. So I would imagine being on the roster for 5 years there in Carolina, he had to have done a decent job at least out in space
you
blocking.
can't play for Ron Rivera and not be able to block. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? Steve Smith, all these other guys could block as well. So
True.
I think you're right. I think he can. So yeah, could it be that he's out there and Travis Benjamin's not? Because Travis Benjamin, though he hasn't played much in these games. He's just been out there occasionally. They haven't really targeted him since the Arizona game where Trey Lance was the starter, the first Arizona game. So there haven't been a lot of options for him. So maybe they are just looking. They're complete ground and pound. It's like, hey, let's get bigger. Let's get even more physical with that fourth receiver.
It's possible.
Because right now Trent Sherfield hasn't blocked great when he's out there in the situation that they've asked him to block in.
No, yeah.
His stock blocking on the outside is fine, but when they asked him to go in motion to make those other blocks like Debo and some of those guys, he hasn't been able to handle that. So maybe that's kind of why he's eased out a little bit. He's still dynamic in the special teams game, but
True.
So interesting signing though, and the fact that Funchess was willing to come onto the practice squad. I wonder why he was willing to come to the 49ers practice squad. I would guess that a lot of other teams would be willing to have him on their practice squad as well.
I would imagine he's looking at it going, I think there's an opportunity to get up onto the active roster with Sanu not being healthy.
Right. He looks at the wide receiver room and says that there's an opportunity.
There's an opportunity here. This is a team that's playing really well recently. I feel I can come in and add something to this. Let's give this a roll. Let's roll the dice.
I've always been a fan of big wide receivers and guys that could, create in the red zone. So I'm all for this. I actually have really enjoyed Devin Funchess' career. He's one of the players that I actually thought he was going to make an impact in Green Bay because of the things that Aaron Rodgers would be able to do with him. The impact of his size, and he kind of fit the mold of what Green Bay does with wide receivers there. So this is a nice move, and I actually really enjoy it. Let's see if he pans out. But worst comes to worst, if he doesn't, no big deal, right? He's practice squad guy.
Doesn't end up costing you too much. So I mean,
the veteran practice squad salary.
Oh boy.
Yeah, nothing.
Oh, goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only move that was made. Well, actually, it wasn't technically a move. A member of our practice squad was signed off the practice squad, which is what opened the door for this move, and that was Will Parks, a defensive back. He's signed by the Miami Dolphins. They placed Brennan Scarlett and Jamal Perry on IR, and then signed Will Parks off of our practice squad. So the Niners have a free practice squad spot. And they're like, all right, sweet, we're going to fill this with this dude, which is crazy to think. Also, there are rumors apparently circulating that the 49ers have terminated the contract of practice squad wide receiver Austin Watkins Jr.
Okay.
So that may also explain why they went after a wide receiver, as they were going to be moving on from Austin Watkins again for the second time. Very interesting situation there. And then they went and I guess they protected 3 practice squad players this week already. Tyrell Adams, Devontae Harris, and Tanner Hudson. Those are the moves that have been made.
That makes sense, especially with Devontae Harris being up on the roster last week.
True.
That makes a lot of sense. And then the fact that Will Parks got claimed, they're probably a little leery of that.
Yeah.
But I think Devin Funchess has proven that he's a better option than Austin Watkins Jr. Watkins, once again, is another one of those guys that has that kind of that mid-range size, like Jawan Jennings. They're a lot in the similar mold. Jennings is just a better player than him. So I think that this is an interesting move, and I mean, I'm a little surprised Will Parks got claimed, but I mean, I guess if you're needy for defensive backs, you're needy for defensive backs.
Miami Dolphins are needy for defensive backs. You know, I'm not gonna try not to read too much into it. I'm assuming Brian Flores has a reason for it. He's been doing a really good job the last few weeks with his defense, so maybe he just feels this guy can do something that he needs him to do.
He's not a bad player. I mean, he's really not. But
No.
I just thought it was interesting that he got claimed at this point.
Yeah, of the names that are available to claim, that's an interesting one.
Okay.
Definitely is an interesting one. But Ant, you know what else is interesting? Not Will Parks getting claimed off our practice squad. That's not interesting. I mean, it is interesting that someone did it, but it's not interesting in terms of things that impact the 49ers negatively. You know what does impact the 49ers negatively, Ant? Being flexed out of Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, it does.
The world doesn't get to see the 49ers. The faithful all over the globe, right? All over the globe, from West Coast to East Coast. All of them. People who aren't in the market and get to watch 49ers games on TV, they have to try and watch them in other methods. Legal methods, obviously. We're not none of that other stuff that happens. That doesn't happen at all.
Sure.
But those folks are going to get deprived of the 49ers on Sunday Night Football in Week 13. And why? Because the NFL decided to opt in and flex out the Niners, not because the Niners are bad, but because the Seahawks have not been good, Ant. I am sad about this. I am absolutely just heartbroken over this. Seattle, how could you do this to us? I know that we've been calling for the downfall of the Seahawks for some time on this podcast. In fact, last year, we predicted that last season was going to be the beginning of the end for Seattle. And then shot ourselves in the foot because it ended up being the beginning of the end for the 49ers as they were ravaged by injuries. Is this just bittersweet? What is this? What is this feeling I'm feeling?
I think what's crazy is it's kind of an end of an era, because in no world would you ever think a 49ers Seahawks game would get flexed out. And this is going to happen. I mean, for 2019, you don't have to go very far back. That game was flexed into Sunday night to end the season. That's just how dynamic this rivalry has been. These two teams have been two of the better teams, and they've always had a nice battle against each other. But yeah, the Seahawks are struggling, and they're not one of those teams that the NFL wants to see on Sunday night anymore. Definitely not the 49ers, because the 49ers are trending in the right direction. So this is too bad. We're not going to, there's a lot of people that aren't going to see the 49ers be able to dominate the Seahawks in prime time. That was going to be fun to watch. Now it's not going to happen. Now it's going to be a normal 1:25 start time. That's specific time, of course. So it's changing things, but maybe it'll be a benefit to the 49ers in some way. They don't have to play on Sunday night. They can play in a day when they're in Seattle.
That game is now supposed to be on CBS, so maybe the only good thing that will come out of this is that we get a Tony Romo announcing of the 49ers Seahawks game.
If the NFL flexed it, you think Tony Romo's really going to be working? Is that the game of the week? If CBS going to see that value that the NFL didn't see for it to be a Sunday night game?
Listen, I've seen Tony Romo on some other games where I don't know why he's there. Like there was a Tennessee one a few weeks ago where it was like Tennessee, whoever, and Tennessee got absolutely blown out. And there's no reason for Romo to be on the call. But they haven't been using him as like the A broadcaster this year. He hasn't been on like the game of the week. They put him in different time slots. Sometimes he's at 10 a.m. Sometimes he's
that's normal
in the afternoon.
The 10 a.m. or 1 o'clock, it's normal.
All I'm saying is that as much as I don't like the Niners not being on Sunday Night Football, CBS, can you do me a favor and a solid and have Romo call the game, please?
Do you really have a problem with them not being on Sunday Night Football?
I don't like them not being on primetime. I want them on primetime. I like that. I like that aspect of them having a night game, having a night situation where, there's no other games to watch and everyone's forced to watch our team. I enjoy that attention. I enjoy those moments for the 49ers, especially since they played well in them. They have played well in them, specifically this year, but in years past they have as well.
Yeah, I think the only thing that selfishly I wanted was to be able to watch all the games during the day before I watched the 49ers game.
True.
Which we normally can't do.
No.
So I think that's the only thing I was really thinking. But as far as playing on Sunday night or playing at 1 o'clock, I don't care as long as it benefits the 49ers. And, maybe if they don't play as early, they can get on the plane a little bit earlier and get home. I mean, they play early to get home earlier.
True.
And prepare for the next week because we're working on playoffs. Maybe also the 12 doesn't show up in it as a big away because it's not a Sunday night game, but it's a day game now. All those things hopefully will benefit the 49ers. As long as it benefits them, I'm okay. But I can see where some people would be upset with it being not on prime time.
Agreed. I agree with you on that there. So, I mean, it's just a little annoying, I guess. I guess the right term.
I can't remember who they flexed, but I know it was the Broncos were one of the teams.
It's Broncos-Chiefs. Broncos-Chiefs got flexed. 5-5 Broncos team and a 7-4 Chiefs team.
It sounds better right now.
I mean, it does sound better. It does sound better. I'll leave it at that. We'll just leave it there. It sounds better. How much better that is, I don't know. NFL, interesting choice. Don't necessarily agree with it, but it is what it is. The NFL has these abilities to flex these games and put what they believe are better primetime matchups on television. Hopefully that game now is an absolute slaughtering, and the 49ers will just run through this team, and then justified, NFL.
Yeah, it'll be the 49ers going to 7-5. That'd be great.
It'll be absolutely glorious. But, Ant, we can't get too far ahead. Yes, the Niners were flexed out in Week 13, and that sucks. It really, truly sucks. But we got the...
I agree to disagree.
It sucks in the regards of not being able to watch other football games before the 49ers.
I'll watch half of them, and I'll be okay.
That's true. So we get some of that. But we got a big game this week against the Minnesota Vikings, and you know what? Minnesota's been playing pretty well, but the Niners have been playing pretty well, and two gentlemen in particular, Kyle Shanahan had to bring up and discuss. One of whom has been playing absolutely great all season, and only clowns have been saying that this guy is oblivious and not very good. And
interesting, yeah.
The other gentleman has not been playing too well. He's not been playing too great. He's actually been struggling. Sophomore struggles is what they called it. We've been watching the film, and it wasn't looking great, but Brandon Aiyuk has definitely taken the next step, and that's the first guy on the docket that we need to talk about, because Shanahan's talking now about how Aiyuk is a lot sharper. He's better. He's doing things at a much higher level than he has been in the past, and he talked about his physicality as well. Physicality in the run game, physicality with the ball in his hands, physicality while the ball is in the air. Brandon Aiyuk is just being more physical, and it's funny. Brandon Aiyuk has been sharper over the last 4 weeks. Most of those games over the last 4 weeks, the 49ers have also been sharper. They've won 3 of those 4. They've also been a lot more physical. Coincidence, Ant? Or has had the whole team, as Brandon Aiyuk has found this, the whole team has found this new niche, this physical niche?
Yeah, I think so. I think they all stepped up. I think every one of these players decided that they were going to go a certain way, but it's very clear that Brandon Aiyuk is a different player than he was early on in this. Earlier on this season, he was a complete shell of himself from his rookie season. And now you're starting to see the things that we all expected to see from him. He's starting to catch the ball and then break tackles and make plays. And his separation, in man-to-man coverage is going up. We talked about it being over 3 yards, of separation now compared to what it was before early in the year, where he was getting 0 separation. So it's a big difference in the way that he's playing. And all those numbers go to show that, yeah, he was struggling a little bit. And that these calls to, arms basically are calling him out a little bit, or to get him to this point where he could go out there and make plays and he could go out there and change the dynamics of this football team. And he's doing that. Because in a game where you needed Deebo Samuel to handle the running back position and really get big chunk plays there, you had a wide receiver on the outside in Brandon Aiyuk that now you could count on. If this was earlier on in the season and he wasn't getting the separation, you wouldn't have been able to rely on Deebo. You would have had to count on Deebo to do it all. And this is not the situation anymore. Brandon Aiyuk has showed up in a big way. His numbers are proving that. But yeah, was it a sophomore struggles early on? Of course it was. And now he's back. He's better than ever. And I think that, the whole team has kind of taken on that new mentality of let's be the hammer and not the nail. And they're going out there and being physical. And he's taking pride in those physical plays. He's taking pride in those blocking. You can see it in his body language. You can see it in his excitement. And that sort of stuff is contagious. And once you start getting praised in meetings and praised on video in team, in your individual groups, you want to do it more because you want that sort of, praise. You want that. It kind of just takes on a new life of its own. and all those players are doing it. So good job for Brandon Aiyuk for figuring this out at some point, getting this together, and now it's just how big can he roll the rest of the season?
True. I mean, that's the real question now: is how big? How big can he take this? How high can he climb? Because he's starting from extremely far behind the 8 ball in terms of his production and the numbers wise, I guess is the best way to put it. But here's the good news. The good news is despite numbers for Brandon Aiyuk and everything else, teams are very well aware of what Brandon Aiyuk is. And we saw the Rams putting Jalen Ramsey on Brandon Aiyuk a lot early in the season, despite the struggles. We saw teams bracketing Brandon Aiyuk. So far through the year, 29 catches, 341 yards. By no means are numbers that anyone was hoping to see. But here's the funny part. He's putting up, these are mediocre Brandon Aiyuk numbers. This is mediocre Brandon Aiyuk right now, Ant. Mediocre Brandon Aiyuk is still on pace for more receiving yards than anything Kendrick Bourne ever put on tape for the 49ers. He's still on pace to get himself into an even better category, and he still has a chance to surpass last year's numbers. And if he could somehow find a way to salvage this season and uptick in terms of yards and receptions and touchdowns over last year, he's really 1 or 2 blow up games, 100+ yards and more than one touchdown, or consistently scoring a touchdown over this last stretch of the season, to outpacing and outproducing what he did last year. And that would be a huge salvage based on how this year started. And it shows, right? It shows in the offense and the production how many points we've been scoring, how many points we've been putting up, and how much more effective we've been on third downs. The third downs, yes, Jimmy Garoppolo is completing passes, but guys are winning more often than they have been, and they're catching those balls when Jimmy's getting in them and putting the ball in tight windows and space. Early in the season, tight throws, things of that nature, guys around him, we were dropping passes. Guys wide open, dropping passes on key third downs, key second downs, when a guy actually wins. Now, guys are winning, securing the ball, as Kyle talked about it being physical, right? Ball in the hands, tough, not getting knocked out. We saw, against Arizona, Brandon Aiyuk go up and make an absolutely insane catch. These guys, the entire team's confidence is growing, but Aiyuk's confidence is rolling with the group. So as this team is feeding off each other. The team continues to have success. Even if Brandon's not the guy doing it, Brandon is going to keep elevating with the group. And as long as he keeps elevating with the group, he's going to have his moment to break out and shine. It may not be the way that a lot of 49ers fans wanted it to be this year, but it's going to come when the 49ers need it most.
What's interesting, Alex, is that you said that he has just like over 300 yards. Was it like 330 something?
349.
349. And then you have George Kittle that's just over 500, and I think it's like 540 yards or somewhere around there. And one of these other guys get to 1,000 yards. Deebo Samuel's going to get over 1,000 yards
easily.
And George Kittle in the next 7 games get to where he can get over 1,000 yards. He didn't play a full season, so he missed games. And then you've got Brandon Aiyuk sitting there where, it's within reach. Both of these guys have the potential. Do you think either one of them can get to 1,000 yards and the 49ers could have 2 1,000-yard receivers? 100%.
100%. And here's the thing, right? We what did we just see last week? Deebo with 19 receiving yards or whatever it was, like nothing, barely anything. Teams are going to start putting pressure on the 49ers to get the ball to other guys. They're going to try and do that. And we've kept saying this. Now, last week, it wasn't Jacksonville putting pressure on the 49ers to get the ball into other receivers' hands. It was the 49ers realizing, hey, we got this guy who can kind of do some stuff, a lot of different things. Why don't we put him in the backfield a little bit more than we typically have and take him out of the receiving game? And look, yes, Deebo has incredible success in the running game, but it's a lot easier to stop a guy running the ball from behind the line of scrimmage than it is stopping a guy out in space running a route with, maybe a handful of guys one-on-one who can guard him or, bracket him per se. And this is where, we talked about this on Face Off a little bit. This is where my problem comes in with, putting Deebo in the backfield. If he's back there, teams know what he's doing. For the most part, they know what his...
Do they?
Well, if he's just behind the ball, getting a snap, getting a handoff, it's a little bit easier to understand where he's going to be in space. I'm not saying that it's the easiest, Ant. I'm not saying it's the easiest, but when you can mix him in and kind of, not just line him up back there for 7 straight plays or something, it becomes a lot harder to contain Deebo Samuel. I know where you're going. That's not what I was trying to say. Don't you twist those words.
I don't have to twist nothing. You were saying it just fine.
Brandon Aiyuk, though, definitely can. He's only got 29 receptions. 29 receptions for 350 yards, essentially, is what it is. That's insane. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And Kittle's is what, like 40 or 34 receptions for 412 yards. Both guys are averaging 10 plus yards a reception.
Right.
So if you're catching 4 or 5 a game, you're getting 50, 60 yards. And there's going to be games where it's going to go over. They're going to get more than 5 or 6 targets going down the stretch here in the season. I think we can definitely get 2 guys to 1,000. The real question is who is the dude? Who is the dude that teams are going to single up and basically say, beat us with this guy? I have a feeling it won't be George Kittle. I have a feeling it won't be Deebo Samuel, which means the door is opening for Brandon Aiyuk to step through and shine here in the second half of the year.
I don't think either one of them get to 1,000 yards.
You don't think so?
No. I think they both come close, but they're going to kind of steal some of the yards from each other.
Okay.
I think Deebo Samuel's getting over 1,000. He had such a hot start, and he's blazing hot start.
If he doesn't get over 1,000, then...
Well, he's getting over 1,000 in this game against
I'm
Minnesota.
aware.
Come on. It's going to happen. Son. Yeah, come on. It's happening. But these other guys, they're going to come close. I think this is the thing. They're going to get, this 800, 900, yard range. They're going to be perfectly fine. But when you're talking about Deebo being easier to stop in the backfield, I think that's a misconception because when you're in the middle of the backfield, you can go either way. When you're outside, you have certain routes that you can run. You're on one side of the field. So, yes, they can bracket you. They can decide where you're going to get stopped. The 49ers literally ran the same play twice in this football game. They pulled Daniel Brunskill around. They had Kyle Juszczyk go and kick out the end. And one play, Deebo Samuel broke up the middle and got a nice gain. The next time he broke outside and got all the way to the 2-yard line. Deebo Samuel has elite vision, whether it's playing running back or playing wide receiver. Now, where we do agree 100%, Alex, is that moving him back and forth from receiver to running back, not having him as stationary where he's one or the other, is what you need. You also want him on the outside. You want him on the slot. You want to move him around. You even saw Kyle Shanahan moving Brandon Aiyuk inline as a tight end look, which is something that Bill Walsh used to do with John Taylor, with Jerry Rice. It changes the look. It changes how you cover him and the alignment that the defense has to play. It confuses them a little bit. Just a little flashback. Super Bowl 23, John Taylor's playing inline as a tight end with his hand on the ground when he catches the famous touchdown to beat Cincinnati. That's a similar look to what Kyle Shanahan ran this week when he sends Brandon Aiyuk to the back corner. It's a different route, but obviously a similar look. And everyone is completely confused because you got George Kittle in the backfield, you got Deebo in the backfield. You're screwing up personnel settings. You're having corners cover running backs. You're having linebackers cover wide receivers. It's a personnel setting where you're sitting there going, that's 21 personnel, it's 2 running backs and 1 tight end. They're putting guys out there in space, and it's like, well, hold on a second. Yeah,
your wide receiver's playing running back.
Well, and that's the thing, you're not willing, right? Because they're not willing to switch it up enough. So then Kyle Juszczyk's on the outside, Jeff Wilson Jr.'s on the outside. They're getting covered by the corners. So that means George Kittle's not getting covered by a corner, so that's a safety or linebacker.
He's got a safety or linebacker.
Brandon Aiyuk has a safety or linebacker. And Deebo Samuel, if he comes out of the backfield,
safety or linebacker.
He created mismatches because the defense isn't being able to plan for that and then isn't willing to move off what they already run because they want to run zone coverage in that scheme. They switched to man, and Jeff Wilson Jr. came out all by himself in the play. Of course, we know that Jimmy Garoppolo misses him, but the problem is you just can't plan for this stuff. And now that the 49ers got these weapons all going with each other, it's going to be hard to stop. So I think that, yes, George Kittle, Brandon Aiyuk, and Deebo Samuel are all poised for a very good end of the last 7 games. I don't think they get to 1,000, coupled because they're going to split some of the yards. Second of all, because they're going to run the ball like they've never ran the ball before.
True.
They're going to continue to pound the rock, and that's going to slow down the opportunities. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this offense. And let's see if Devin Funchess gets in there and takes some of those yards away as well.
Agreed. That's going to be very interesting to see who chips away at what and who prevents who from getting where. And but speaking of people preventing people from getting places, offensive linemen have been preventing Nick Bosa, from getting to the quarterback with a lot of holding calls. He's already surpassed his non-holding calls. Excuse me. He's already surpassed his 2019 total. He had 9 sacks in that rookie campaign in 2019. He's already at 10.
Yeah,
they were talking about it on KMBR a little bit and talking about just Bosa himself. And I think they were were they talking with Joe Staley?
I'm not sure.
I think they were talking with Joe Staley a little bit about this. And they were talking a little bit about, well, imagine how many sacks he may actually have if he wasn't being held on every play. And Staley kind of had some insight into this. And he said, the reason why he's being held so often is that he's so good at taking the inside move. So he starts going on the outside and he's so fast that guys are trying to get out in space. And once he recognizes that you have an angle or that you've gotten a good jump and you're going to beat him to that spot and maybe, his rip move isn't going to work, his single arm's not going to work, he's very good at changing directions immediately and getting inside of you. And guys are like, oh, and having the last minute to bring that arm up in space. Nick talked about post game too. He said, I finally got a couple holding calls. I'm gonna stop complaining about it for now, and maybe officials are starting to see what's actually going on here, which is I got this guy beat, and he's having to grab me and choke me and do all this other stuff, try and slow me down because he knows he's about to give up an easy sack.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that plays with dynamic speed and leverage. And that leverage is what gives these guys so many fits because he's able to get up underneath them, but he's able to change direction because of his size. He's not one of the bigger, taller guys. He's smaller than his brother, in fact, as far as height. And that changes the way that you play on the edge. So he's dynamic in that way, and I think a lot of people are struggling to stop him. But that's kind of why I was struggling with some of the narratives that were coming out from some of the media outlets about, Nick Bosa was having a bad year or he didn't understand where he was playing or what he was doing.
He's oblivious.
Yeah, he's oblivious. I mean, that was a literal film breakdown from Grant Cohn and Jack Hammer. And Jack Hammer was not agreeing with this, but...
Well, he was trying not to agree with it, but he also wasn't sitting there going, dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and Grant Cohn was saying he was oblivious. It was a screen situation. It was completely wrong. You've seen in this game, Nick Bosa played the screen, fantastic. Nick Bosa has played well all year, and his numbers reflect that. And as long as he stays healthy, and I think he's going to, because he's bounced back in a big way.
Huge way.
He's going to have 15 plus sacks this year. That's a huge season for Nick Bosa, and that's a huge season for the 49ers. And this is exactly what you need. And he doesn't have an elite pass rusher on the other side. He has Armstead next to him, which has been wonderful to watch. And Armstead's been eating the double teams. Bosa's been singled up.
Well, that's the thing. Armstead for a bit wasn't. They still were doubling Bosa, and Armstead started killing so much on the interior that teams are just like, yeah, we can't have that.
Yeah.
That's too short of a pass to the quarterback. We got to double him, and we just got to hope that we do enough against Bosa.
Yeah, what's really scary is if they can get D Ford back, and they can go with a lineup that has Bosa, Armstead, Arden Key on the inside with D Ford on the outside on obvious pass downs, because Arden Key is winning big interior against these guards. That's a bad situation for other teams, and you can see this gold rush pick up even more than it does. Also, you couple that with the way the offense has been playing, these guys are playing less snaps than ever. So you got a more fresh Nick Bosa, a more fresh Eric Armstead, and that's why Bosa, I think, is playing better, especially over the last few weeks, where he just looks fresher. He's not as tired. He's able to go out there and throw people around. These offensive tackles are really going to struggle. So I like it. I like what he's done this year, and I think he's only improved. And coming off the ACL, one heck of a bounce back year. I think he's right in the thick of being, an NFL comeback player of the year because of his numbers, and I think his overall numbers at the end of the year are going to reflect that.
Very true. And Kyle talked a little bit about how Bosa was missed greatly in 2020. But at the beginning of this year, he was talking to him about how he was feeling, his health and all that. And Bosa told him, I'm not just good. I'm better. I'm better than I was. And Kyle was like, oh, yeah, confidence. Good. I'm glad you have confidence. And then he realized very quickly, oh, no, it's not confidence. This is just reality. He is legitimately just that much better than he was last year. And that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy to think. He's already got 10 sacks in the season, 15 tackles for loss, and 34 tackles, a pass defended, and 2 forced fumbles on the year so far. And Bosa, he's talking about how, apparently in post-game presser, he's talking about how he's just starting to get a hang of how to rush properly and get sacks and get after the quarterback. He's just starting to figure it out. Basically, he said rookie year is just like running around with a chicken with your head cut off. You're just trying to win every time, and you don't know how many opportunities you get, so you're just going full speed. Now Bosa kind of understands how to push, lever, like the leverage stuff you talked about, right? When to press. When is this opportunity to go full speed, ball out, and when is it the time to, hey, you know what, I'm gonna slow rush this a little bit here, try and work this guy back a little bit, get him really putting his feet in the ground and try and stud me up, and then when I see my opportunity, quarterback steps up in the pocket, he tries to release outside. Now right. I'm gonna shed and go.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about learning, different guys as well, different offensive linemen, but your different techniques and different ways to rush. There's a lot that goes into it, and the elite guys can do it all at a high level. And the guys who aren't elite, they just do the best they can. And I think Nick is learning when to do things, when to put the gas, pedal to the metal. And it's exciting to watch. But he's going to learn even more when, exactly when to explode. Because sometimes you can slow rush, the offensive lineman settles, and then you explode and you take advantage of his, weight being off balance or him feeling like he's comfortable, letting his hands relax a little bit, and then you get into his chest plate. So it's not all about going full speed. Sometimes it's about patience, about finding the right leverage at the right time, getting him in the right spots. Reggie White was famous for the hump move, and the reason the hump move was so successful is he would catch them with their weight off balance, but he had to hit them at the perfect moment, and he would catch them all the time, and he wouldn't just hit them with the club and knock them down. He would put them on the ground all the time. It was successful because he's had such great timing and technique on what he did, and he was a freak of nature strength-wise.
That helps.
But all that
Definitely
comes with
helps.
experience, all that comes with timing, and I just look for him to keep getting better. I mean, eventually he's going to sign himself one heck of a contract.
And deservedly so.
Oh, yeah, he's earning every penny of it. Thank God he's only in year 3. We don't have to worry about it next year.
It's true.
But going into year 5, they're going to have to worry about that. But, yeah, he's been a dominant force this year. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does the rest of the year. There's 7 games left. Plenty more time for him to go wreak havoc on some more quarterbacks.
Hey, 1 sack a game, get him 17 sacks this season. That would be absolutely insane. And the sad part is 1 sack a game is just almost at this point expected. It's almost expected at Nick Bosa that he's going to get someone at least one time, clean enough one time to fully bring a guy down. And we still got some games with some very spotty offensive lines where that number could actually be significantly higher than that, which is just nuts to think about. Nick Bosa getting scarier and scarier every week. NFC, better stay ready. Better buckle up and get the diapers ready because Nick Bosa's coming after you in full force, and I'm all here for it.
Bosa. Sign him to a 20-year contract right now.
Right now. Freaking George Kittle, man. I absolutely love that guy. Cutback crew, let us know what you thought about all of this. Are you excited about Devin Funchess? Are you pissed off about the 49ers being flexed out? Are you excited about a sharper, more physically dominant Brandon Aiyuk? And is Nick Bosa as scary as you remember him in 2019 or even scarier now? We want to hear from you down below in the comment section. So make sure you're typing away. And while you're doing that, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell.
Yeah, are you excited about Alex's away USC jersey?
True.
That's what it looks like from the top.
Hey, now.
Never been a USC fan, but apparently sporting it right now.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's totally USC and not white and red 49ers colors. Not that.
This is 49ers.
I mean, that is 49ers.
Is USC.
I don't know about that. Agree to disagree, my guy, but it's A-okay. Disagree in the comment section all you want down below as well, and we'll see ya. We'll see ya on the quest.
Happy Thanksgiving.
On the quest for the West. Happy Thanksgiving, and until the next one, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.